Hello, everybody, and welcome to Halaxy's webinar series. Today, as you're likely well aware, we'll be discussing everything you can do with Halaxy's leading access tools from within your Halaxy accounts. So what we'll do is what we usually get up to is a minute or two, just let everyone filter through for today's webinar. But in the meantime, by all means, hello each other, and we'll have a few introductions coming through, which will be fantastic. So if you are attending today, please by all means use the chat option just to, and say hello to us, our team, and everybody else who's attending the webinar. So I'm joined with my colleagues. My name is Michael, and we'll be taking you through everything there is to know about Halaxy's ACT levels. So if you're in a practice where you have more than one practitioner or administrator, or you're also providing access to, say, a bookkeeper or a virtual assistant or receptionist, then this is definitely a webinar you're likely to get a lot out of, because there's a lot of functionality that Halaxy provides with restricting and providing access to different areas of your Halaxy account. So what's fantastic is right now I can see that we have a lot of us are through and we're saying hello, which is great. What I think we'll do is, now that we're a couple minutes into the webinar and your time is valuable, we'll start getting into what we'll be discussing today. So in terms of what we're covering today, this is a webinar on Halaxy access levels. Halaxy's access level, in our view, are industry leading because they offer a lot of customization and a lot of flexibility to suit your practice needs when it comes to restricting, providing access to different areas of your Halaxy accounts. Now, in terms of today's webinar, what we'll be covering is a guided walkthrough, and we're going to go through each of Halaxy's access levels. I'll just provide a bit of a description and a bit more context around what each one does. Then we'll talk how you actually assign and change your access levels, and how can we customize that access for different practitioners, different location or clinic restrictions, and infant types or categories within your practice. So that could mean anything: payments, finances, calendar, the like. And also I'll talk through briefly how you can hold patient names for different practitioners. So if you have, say, a bookkeeper that's accessing your account to help you with your financial accounting, then you likely don't want them to be able to see patient names and other information. So you can restrict that with well. And finally, we'll cover enabling two-factor authorization with your practice. So they're the areas we're going to cover today. By all means, if you have a question, just a bit of housekeeping, you'll likely at the bottom there's a question field, or make sure that you mark it off as a question when you are asking a question. And our team will answer any of your questions today. Just make sure you send them through, and as we go along now, it's a really good opportunity to ask those questions you've been wanting to in relation to access. If there's anything particularly challenging or specific, what we recommend is emailing at community@halaxy.com. We're more than happy to respond to your queries there as well, and we can have more of a look at your account to give you specific information. But if you have any general questions about access, anything that I'm aware covering today, then please, by all means, use the chat field at the bottom right screen, and use the Q&A section and ask a question, and we'll be able to answer as well. So we'll make sure that everyone can see those questions come up, and as there are, so we can all learn from each other. Okay, well, what I'll do now is we'll actually change the screen share so you can see the account that I'm presenting from, and then from there you can begin today's discussion. So bear with me one moment, and just activating the calendar right now. So please, by all means, just let us know that you can see the calendar within your screen. You should be able to see that here. Now, if anything's a little bit blurry, that's okay. This webinar you can watch again, but I'll be describing lots of aspects about this webinar and each area that I'm clicking on. Should be able to follow and just know talking through that we're following as well. So that's fantastic. Okay, green, and everyone can see our Halaxy calendar here, which is absolutely brilliant. Okay, all right. So given that you've registered for this webinar, you already have access to your Halaxy account. Now, in terms of user access levels and the type of level of discussion we'll be having today, is I'll be covering the basics, but also leading up to more advanced areas as well. So whether you're just starting out with Halaxy or you're new to access levels generally, or whether you've been looking at access levels for some time, this webinar, what we're hoping to do is cover a broad spectrum of queries and also provide that confidence that you know how you're using your access levels so you can get the most of them. Okay, so in terms of actually having a look at where your access levels live, make sure your settings within your Halaxy menu screen. So if you click the menu bar here, you'll see there's a settings option and just select users. So under settings in the menu, select users, and we'll see that the users page will appear. And this provides a list of all of the users within your Halaxy account. So within this screen here, you'll actually be able to see every user within your Halaxy page, as we can see here. And you can see their level of access as well. So we have in this group, this example made up group, we have one practitioner called Alex Smith, completely made up name. We also have an example administrator and a junior practitioner. Now, at the moment, what we can see is that our practitioners have full access, and also our administrator has full access as well. So we can see here that all of our users currently have full access. Now, what does this mean? Well, effectively self-evident. Full access means any one of these users at the moment. So ourselves, our example administrator, and our junior practitioner all have access to every aspect of our Halaxy account. So they can see our entire patient, everyone can see the entire patient list, patient clinical information. They can see the calendar. Everyone can see all of our financial information, our reporting information, also can update other people's profile details if need be. And across the settings section, can access quite a lot of this too. That's fantastic if you're a practice administrator, if you're a practice owner, or if you require full access in your administrative duties, then full access is the way to. It's probably the clearest in the sense that you can whatever you need to do within the Halaxy account itself do with them. Now, with that, sometimes it can be a little bit complicated, only to the extent that there are a lot of options that are available to you. But do know that once you actually set up, or if there's a way that you want your Halaxy account to be set up, or your to be set up from an access level point of view, it's there's every chance that Halaxy is able to allow you to do that. So if you do have any specific questions beyond the questions that we're just asking now through the Q&A section in this webinar we're answering, then please do email us in at community@halaxy.com. Another option is you can click this help guide up here, it's a light blue question mark. If you click that, search for access levels, and we provide an extensive help guide talking through all aspects and likely most of the questions that anyone could have regarding to what could be with access levels. So make sure you click that. So we've talked about full access. That's pretty clear. Now, what are the other access levels that are available? Well, let's look through them. So if I click change access levels here, we can now see that we have our general practitioner user login information. So you can actually update your users' emails if you have full access. So the emails they log in. That's particularly helpful with practitioners who may change their email addresses. you can update, or when a practitioner leaves or an administrator leaves, and you can also update this here as well. So they also don't even have the email address in terms of having access there. But relating to actually providing different levels of access within your Halaxy account, this is the section here under the full access menu. So if we click this drop-down menu, because we're a practitioner here, you can see that this user, our current user, is a practitioner. They have 4 general full access, which is what we've currently selected. The second is clinical access. The third is own records and others contact information. And the final one is personal access. And you can see as we move from full access at the bottom of the drop-down menu up, to move towards the top, the practitioner in this case is having more information restricted. So there's less information they have access to as we go up to just personal access. I'll talk through each one of those in a moment. Actually, the concept to understand here is that strict information as you move up these or along these access levels towards the top of the drop-down menu. But that could be also something the practitioner would prefer as well, because it means that they can edit information relating to the reliance and the like as well, or patients. So it can be a huge benefit as well by making sure that as you practice can't actually get affected too. Now, what each of these areas mean? Well, in our help guide, we do detail what each section refers to. But before I go into that, I'll just show you how these sections here change slightly when we're not in a practitioner profile. We're actually in an administrator profile. So now, and then we'll get back into this. So cancel here. The edit icon under the actions menu, the actions column. I'll click the edit icon to the right of our example administrator. And if we remember, we had 4 options before. This is an administrator. This administrator currently has full access. Let's click the edit icon and have a look at their levels. And we can see here that the administrator have personal access because they're actually not a practitioner. So if you're an administrator, well, you're not a practitioner, but you are likely either completing all areas of the practice's administration, which would likely require full access, or you require access to clinical notes, so you're completing different practice notes and general information, or responsible for booking and the like and appointments and ensuring that that's all up to scratch. Well, then you would contact access, and you wouldn't want access to clinical information or to payment information generally, like reminders and the like as well, and credit cards and that type of thing, and deposit details for the account. So I'll talk through each one of these in a moment, but I just want to highlight that administrators do have similar access levels, except for personal. So there's 3 options there. Now, everyone is probably wondering also, what is this that's appearing? I'll speak to that in a little bit later on, to this section that you can see here where you can tick on or off. And we'll go through each. And there's also some improvements that are coming out very, very shortly as well. So let's go back to our practitioner account here. And remember, we're under settings, users. So settings, users. And click, and we can see currently this time we have 4 options. Now, expecting everyone, depending on your internet at the moment, to be able to see each option clearly, but I am talking through each option for us as well. So just be confident with that I'm talking through each option there. So thank you for a couple of people that have asked a question. So here we can see full access. What does clinical access mean? What does own records and others contact information mean? And what does... Well, let's talk through that. Now. So when actually looking at your access levels here, full access actually means that you have full access to your entire account, entire Halaxy account. That's across information, that's across payment and deposit information, and also being able to update other practice information. Now, I think it's probably in some ways easier to begin from the top, which is the personal access section here. So if we were to change this access level right now for this practitioner to personal access, I've been saying it so much it's now more difficult to say. So if we were to change this practitioner's profile to personal access, that means the practitioner can access and edit their own records. Now, what does that mean? Well, that actually means we're seeing particular patient clients that they can access only those records where they are linked to their patient or clients. Now, how does that look in practice? Well, I'll show you. If this was changed to personal access and I click save, do that for now because we're logged in as this user. If I were to change that to personal access, we can have a look at our patient list, and the practitioner would only see patients that they are linked to. And if we clicked one of these patients, we can see practitioner relationships. This is what defines whether our practitioners can see those patient or client details. And here we can see the practitioner is listed and they have an access level that's current and a status that's current for this particular patient. This example here, our first patient. So when you do restrict practitioners' access to personal access, restricting their view only to those patients where they have a practitioner relationship. And if you wanted to add that relationship, you can. So you can select the edit option here. We just click edit. Clicking this, you got to remove the access. You can click the X to remove that particular practitioner's access to this particular patient. Or you can also add other practitioners to this patient's profile as well. So if we select, say, junior practitioner, select them as the main practitioner, and I'll leave that access level as null for now because then that's by our overriding access level settings that we're now talking about. So I'll click submit, and we've just added a second practitioner to this patient's relationship. So essentially, if we were to restrict the practitioner's access to personal access only, if we now navigate the patient list, instead of patients listed here, our practitioner will only see one. So let's do that now. So we're just working through changing our junior practitioner's access from access to personal access. So let's do that. So I'm going to change it here. Just click the edit icon under settings, users, and we've clicked the icon to the right of the junior practitioner's username. And we're changing their access level here to personal access. So let's save. Fantastic. So we're saving those access levels now. And now what I'll do is I'll log out of Halaxy, and we'll log in as our junior practitioner. Log in as our junior practitioner. And try to log in there. I've typed in the password, which is fantastic. It's always helpful. And let's now have a look at our settings users page first of all. And what you'll notice here is that the practitioner can only see their login details. They only have personal access, whereas before we could see the other practitioners and administrators that had access to this account. But we can only now see, as logged in as this junior practitioner with personal access, we can only see our details being the practitioners. And if we click edit here on the access levels option, we can see other options appearing here, but personal access is listed there. And so they're unable to change that. Now log our patient, let's have a look in terms of what we can see. And we're having a look at our patient list. And before, if you remember, we had a list of patients here. I think there were around 5, possibly 6. But now we can only see one patient's a patient listed in our patient list. And that's because when we click through to our patient, we can see the practitioner relationship here is with the junior practitioner and it's current. And we actually can't see the other relationship details with other practitioners. So you can already see, hopefully, that personal access provides a restriction in terms of the clinical information that this practitioner has access to. So if I go back to the user page, we can see that that is listed as personal access here. If I click the edit icon on the access levels, we can see that as this practitioner, we have access to the calendar, to this information, and to settings. Now, if we were to unclick any of these from the full access account, we could restrict access for this practitioner to the calendar, to invoices, to finance reports. We could actually restrict them to a particular location. We could link them to a particular clinic/location, personal locations, and they could only see information to that location. We can restrict their access to payments as well, so they can't change the payment settings. And you'll see here, you can also provide read access only too. I'll leave that for now. We'll log out of here and we'll log back into our full access account, because that full access account is the account that actually allows us to change the access levels. So we can see we've logged in now. Click settings in the menu. And actually, before I do that, I'll show you the patient list. It's still the same practice group. Let's look at the patient list. And now here we see that all of our patients are listed, but the other patients we couldn't see before, because, for an example on here, they didn't have a practitioner relationship with our junior practitioner. It's just Alex Smith, the account we're currently in. Here's if we go to settings and we click users, a full access account. So the access type is full access for our junior practitioner that we just were logged in as. We can see that's only a personal access account. So hopefully that's provided at least somewhat of an explanation and a demonstration as to how personal access works for practitioners. Now, in terms, and remember that only applies to practitioners, it doesn't apply to administrators, because personal access is a clinical access that's provided, and it's recommended where essentially generally only patients would see the same practitioner regularly. Now, if there is a situation where you have a practitioner in your account that's listed as personal access, and they need to see a different patient, well, what you can do is you can add that practitioner, so the one with personal access can add that practitioner to that patient's profile under their practitioner relationships that we've just discussed as well. So let's now update this practitioner access from personal to own records and others contact information. Now, what does that mean? What does own records and others contact information mean? Well, it actually means whilst the practitioner can edit other, so practitioner here with the personal access can, once this can access and edit other practitioners' patient profiles, other practitioner patient appointments, and other practitioner patients' invoices, but they can't view other practitioner patients' clinical notes. So essentially, is that if you have other practitioners within your practice who help with administrative tasks and need access to move appointments around, to move, adjust invoices with the fees listed, view general basic patient contact information, well, own records and others contact is an excellent. Now, especially if you want to restrict their access to clinical notes. So they can only see their own patient's clinical notes and they don't have access to other practitioners' clinical notes. Now, as we saw, this is also, I'll save this here for this practitioner, but we also have the option to choose this option for administrators too. So if I click the edit icon here, we can select this here and select contact access. And that's the same type of access. So, administrators can see the contact details for different practitioners. And they can see all the invoice details. They can make changes and delete appointments, as well as create invoices, adjust invoices, make payments and invoices. But you can't access patient clinical notes or make changes to group or clinic-wide settings with contact access here. So I'll click Save now as well. And please, by all means, keep asking questions as we go along, and our team is enjoying answering them as well. And we're making sure that everyone can see the questions as they're asked too, and the responses as they come through. So please make sure you keep asking questions through the webinar, because that's why we're here. We're here to answer your questions and hopefully provide enough detail and background around how access levels work. Now, remember that we changed practitioners' access levels here, own records and others contact, and we've changed the administrators to contact access. They're essentially equivalent because administrators don't have a practitioner relationship, so it's just the contact information, appointment information, invoice information that can be adjusted to contact access. But let's log in as our practitioner, our junior practitioner, and before we only could patients' details in the patient list, and let's see what happens now. So we'll log out, and I'll log back in here as our junior practitioner. And once we log in, we should be able to see the calendar for the junior practitioner. You'll see now that actually you can select the other practitioner's calendar if we wanted to. So we can see Alex Smith's calendar here too. We can see now Alex Smith's appointments, so our full access practitioner's appointments. And if we made an appointment here for our junior practitioner, this is here. So suddenly we have the visibility. Now, under the patients list, last time we logged in junior, and we can only see one patient. Look now, we log into the patient list, and what we can see from here is all of our patients' information. So we can actually see our patients' information here. And if I click first patient, with the one we saw before, we can see the junior practitioner is still listed here, and we can access clinical notes for this particular patient. Now, if I log back into the patient list and we click our second patient, now, if we look at the practitioner relationship here, it's only Alex Smith. The junior practitioner doesn't have a relationship here. So let's click the clinical notes and see what happens. Okay, so under this second patient's profile, our junior practitioner is told there's no clinical records for this patient because they don't have access. So they actually can't see any clinical information here. And that's because, and remember, just bear in mind, I want you to remember this is the second patient's details here, because we're going to log into the full access account and have a look at that in a moment. So if we navigate back down to settings users, we can see that our junior practitioner has own records and other contacts information. So we can only access essentially the general patient's profile page. We can access the calendar, but we can't access that patient's, the second patient's clinical information. So let's now, what I'll do is I'll log back in to our full access account as our example practitioner. And we'll have a look and we'll see what our second patient's page, general profile page, looks like. And then from there, whether we can see any clinical notes as well. Just draw the comparisons. Clicking the second patient's profile. From here, we can see general information. We can see our junior practitioner isn't related to this patient's profile. Let's click clinical notes. And you can actually see there are clinical notes listed. So we're seeing a different screen where our practitioner, current login, can see these details. So that's really quite powerful, because you can share administrative duties across both administrators and practitioners knowing that you're also hiding the clinical note information. So it's just something to be aware, and you can see how that works there. I'm going to click Settings and Users, and we'll move along now to changing this junior practitioner's details, records and others content to clinical access. Now, what does clinical access mean? Well, clinical access means our junior practitioner can edit other practitioners' patient profiles as they could before. They can edit other appointments and invoices as they could before, but they can now access clinical notes for other patients and clients they're not linked to through a practitioner relationship. The practitioner can also, and administrators, this also applies to administrators. I want to make that really clear. So thank you for asking those questions. So practitioners and administrators for clinical access can also edit group and client settings. So this is recommended for when you have patients and clients seeing different practitioners within the practice, but also when you need to share clinical information between administrators and practitioners, even though your patients may have a preferred practitioner, so i.e. in physiotherapy or GP practices, but you might find that your clients or patients generally see one particular practitioner, but you actually sometimes because of availability or other reasons, they may want to see a different practitioner within your practice. Well, then you need access to their clinical information. In addition, especially as an administrator, if you're needing to edit and manage clinicals for all of your practitioners' patients, and you want to be able to make changes to group and clinic-wide settings, then this is the recommended option here. So you're looking to change case notes and clinical records on behalf of practitioners within your practice group, but you may not need access to adding new users, editing access levels. So clinical access is the way to go. So if we now adjust this to clinical access for our junior practitioner, let's click Save. Selecting Save, and we can now see that our junior practitioner here under Settings Users, a junior practitioner now has clinical access. So we're slowly moving up towards full access again. So clinical access. Now, what are our expectations here once we log into our junior practitioner's account? Well, our expectations are, just like if they're an administrator as well, that they can edit other patients' profiles, invoice, and clinical notes. And they can edit group-wide clinical settings as well, and group-wide administrative settings, except for adding new users and changing access levels. So let's log out of our full access practitioner. We're going to log in here as our junior. Here we go, we're logging in. And previously, when we had the access level set as own records and others contact, we logged into our patient page, the patient list, say, and under the patient list here, the patient was selected, we couldn't see any of the patient's clinical information. It was a relationship. But now if I click second patient here, we'll see that even though this practitioner doesn't have a patient relationship, if we click the clinical notes section, we can now see our clinical information. So if our practitioner or administrator needs to adjust or add clinical notes, we can do that from here. Now let's have a look at our settings page, and we'll just have a look to click here, and we can see all of practitioners within our users page under settings users, but the one thing we can't see is a new user, right? So from here, can't really any practitioner or administrator that's set as clinical access, so clinical access here, can't actually see different patient and the different levels from here. They can't adjust them, but they also can new users to them as well. That's a full access that we have here. So hopefully from what we've been talking through so far, we've actually covered each of the areas in terms of the general settings for access levels. So I'll just log out of this junior practitioner. I'll log out here. And what we'll do is I'll log back into our example practitioner. Remember, this applies across to administrators as well. Just want to reiterate that. But if you have any questions, please keep asking as we're answering them as well. But also, check out our light blue question mark here, and you've got different access levels from there. So if I now click our settings users page, and we can see here under our settings user page that we have our account that we've just logged in as full access, and we have our access levels here as well. And the full access levels that we can see our actual user section now changes in terms of what we can see here. You can see there's two options, and we can edit two-factor authentication settings, also add user. This option didn't actually appear when we had clinical access before. So this is only a full access. So if you want to add a new user, we could click this and add a new user here. But we also edit our two-factor authentication settings, which we'll touch on at the end of the webinar, probably in about 10 minutes or so's time. So we've talked through essentially, and we've discussed, if I just click our junior practitioners levels here, we've talked through the 4 sections. Access and full access here. So if we change our practitioners profile to full access, we can see there's certain areas we can restrict or enable. We can click clinical access, and there's other sections that appear. Own records and others contact, same, and personal access does change it slightly as well. So I'm going to click clinical access because that provides us with the widest set of options. And I would like to take this moment just to actually let you know that we're bringing out, as of by the end of this, you'll be able to see within your account, this section will look slightly different. And it'll look slightly different because we've actually brought out, we're bringing in a couple of extras as well. So you have extra restrictions and abilities to restrict and provide access to different areas within your Halaxy account. So you'll see within that section, in this section that we're looking at here, that we're actually splitting it out to appointment, so the ability to see, so that's the calendar, then financial information, and that covers areas like personal finance restriction, invoices, finance access, finances and practice reports, and then also restricting access to the full finance suite within Halaxy. But then there'll be a general section as well, where you'll actually be able to restrict on an even finer detail, in even more granular detail, restricting access to payments, including add-on reminders and integrations pages. And then there'll be a clinical section. You can enable access and restrict access to clinical templates that are group-wide, also in general. And then we have our clinical restriction and read-only sections too. So I'm just listing those out just so it's not completely new to you when you see it. What I recommend doing is reviewing our guide as well. If you'd like to further restrict access levels for your different users within your Halaxy account here. Now, in terms of what each of these sections mean, if you deselect calendar, what that actually means is that your practitioners and administrators won't have access to seeing the calendar. So if we restricted this for our junior practitioner, we won't be able to see the calendar. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to deselect that here. And then from here, we'll be able to restrict this, and from here, make some changes. cut out there for a little bit. Apologies. And back. Okay. So in terms of talking through, and apologies for that, we just there for a moment. So in terms of talking through the different options that are available, from here, what's important to know that we're going to restrict each section. We'll restrict access to invoices here as well, and strict access to finance reports. What we can do is actually also enable personal level access to group settings. What we might do is restrict this as well. Just going to deselect all of these options, and I'll show you how that appears once we log in as our junior practitioner. The one option I will add is clinic restriction. So if you have multiplications listed here, you can actually click restriction, and then from that point, it restricts your practitioner to particular location. So if we click save, so I've deselected almost everything here, own records and others contact, click save, we'll do that. And then from this point here, what I want to show you just in as our junior practitioner is under personal locations. I'll click personal locations. And then from here, under personal location, we can actually see there's one location listed. Now, if you had multiple locations, if you added another one, let's say location 2, we'll just put in Melbourne for now. Now, this could be anywhere in the world. And we will save our location here. We currently don't have any practitioners listed at that location, which is fine. So we'll add ourselves as a practitioner. Select those here. And now we have 2 locations listed. But we want to list our other practitioner in our first location. So the important thing just to note here is that there are 2 locations. So there are 2 locations listed, and one of them has 2 practitioners, our junior practitioner listed as well as ourselves, and the other location only has ourselves. Our junior practitioner isn't listed at location 2. Our junior practitioner only listed at clinic A. So let's log out, and now we'll have a look in terms of the type of information that our junior practitioner can and cannot see. So we'll log in here and log in like that. And what we'll suddenly see from here is that we're restricted in terms of what we can access. So if we click our patient list, let's have a look. We'll start from here. And we can see, because we have general access to other contact details, we can still see our patient list. But we deselected the option to see the calendar. So our practitioner actually can't see their calendar. If you don't want them to, or you don't want your practitioners to, then you can deselect that. If we have a look at finances, so I'll just log into our finances and click the invoices option. What we can see here is we've actually, at a more granular level, deselected the option to give access to invoices under finances. We've also deselected the option under finances to see fees and information related to fees. If we try and run a report, we'll click the reports option here. We can see that now practitioner doesn't have access to finance reports or any type of report along here. And then if we continue through, I'll leave the contacts information for now, but we'll click profile personal. We can see that our practitioner can still see their profile page and edit this area. But now let's navigate to our settings section. So I'll click settings, we'll click general, and we can see the general settings selected here, and that's absolutely fine. But then if we navigate down, we can see as we go along here that in this, we can see group templates, and the new restrictions that are coming out by the end of this webinar, you'll see, so by the next time you log in, that you can actually restrict access to group templates as well. I'm clicking payments here, and we can see that this practitioner is restricted from seeing payment settings. So this is also restricted. Clicking down, looking at reminder settings, just to highlight what you can and can't see when you do restrict different settings. So here, we need to add another level, so I'll leave that one for now. Integrations is another area that we're also providing more access levels to, so you can restrict access to integrations, and I should say reminders as well. And we're also, by the next time you log in, you'll see that you're also able to restrict access to add-ons. So if we go back to our users page from here, we can actually see that under our junior practitioners page, from here, they have been restricted. When they used to be able to access the calendar and practitioner could access answers, they now can't. And the reason we can't is if we click the edit icon under our junior practitioners access level section, we deselected the option for we selected the option for invoices, we deselected the option for finance reports, and also restricted their access to settings. But if we look here, we have clinic restrictions selected. What does that mean, Michael? Well, let's have a look. We'll navigate to personal. We'll click locations. So personal locations. You remember, if you recall, we actually had access to 2 locations earlier, but from here, we can only see 1 location. So we can only see 1 location here because clinic restriction means you can restrict your practitioners and your administrators to seeing information related only to the practitioners, only to the locations that they are linked to. So this is a really powerful tool. If you're managing lots of locations across a number of practitioners, you can have practitioners operating from different locations, but then restrict their access only to those locations themselves. So from doing this, you can actually find that you can have a lot of flexibility in how you set up your practitioner's access levels and your administrators' access levels. But not only that, it can also allow your practice to grow across different locations, both offline and online, so in clinic and online, knowing that you can actually restrict access to different areas of your clinics and practices as well. So in terms of the flexibility that's in Halaxy, I recommend that you have a look through all these options because you have a lot of flexibility and there's a lot of options to actually restrict and enable access to different components and categories of your Halaxy account. Now, I did mention that there was an option to hide access to patient names, and that's another area that we'll cover just now. So if we log out of our junior practitioners account, we'll log back into our example practitioner account here. Log into our example practitioner account. Fantastic. Clicking settings, users. And then from here, what we can see is what we'll do is for our administrator, I'll click the edit icon and you'll see there's an option here called hide access to patient names. So if we tick that option for our administrator and click save, what we can do is what we can show you is we can actually hide the list of patient names. So if we now log out here and we'll log in as an example administrator here, and let's log in. We'll have a look at our patient list just to see the type of information that we've now restricted access to. You can see, even though our administrator can see that there's different patients and they all have their own unique ID, that they have now been turned into, they've been, so if we click one of these details here, our patient names now no longer can our administrators see that patient name. So why is this important? Because if you were, say, engaging with a bookkeeper or an accountant, or you needed to restrict access to names for a particular user within your group, you can do that just by clicking one option, which was under the administrator option here. And because we had full access, we could change that to hiding access to patient names. So suddenly all those names are anonymized. Now, Also, you can't see, because this shows contact access, we can't add new user details here. But if I log out here, and example practitioner, we'll log back in to a full access account. We'll click settings. Thank you for asking all your questions so far as well. It's been fantastic having them engaged and also being able to cover all of these details here for everybody. So we're getting to the end of the webinar now. If you have any other questions, please feel free to ask them, but also highly recommend reviewing our help guide in the top right. So this help guide here and look up access levels. And we have extensive notes and a number of walkthroughs where we talk through each section. But in addition to that, you can always contact us at community@halaxy.com. We're available 18 hours a day, Monday to Friday, and you can also call us in. So if you need to call in, please log in to halaxy.com. You can have a look at our phone number there and call us for any help as well. Again, we're available 18 hours a day. So the final step I'd like to highlight is, now that we're back in this full access account, we can actually add user information here. Add new users because we're full access. But we can also add and edit two-factor authentication settings. So from here, we could add mandatory two-factor authentication login settings for our practitioners and administrators that access our Halaxy account. And why is this helpful? Well, there are requirements now for a number of accounting integrations where they do require two-factor authentication. But there's also if you're looking to make your Halaxy more secure, actually enable 3 different types, or one type out of 3 types of authentications, being either email, Google Authenticator, which is an app you can install on your phone, or an SMS. So what that means is every time you look to log in, if you select email, your practitioners and administrators will do check their email for the login code that goes with their email address. If it's a Google Authenticator, you can download an app on your phone and the code changes every minute, if not less. And so you can open your phone and check the code to use as a two-factor authentication. And SMS means naturally that you receive an SMS code on it as well. But you do have the options here to prompt on log on, to make it log in, to make it mandatory or optional. So from here, you can actually adjust your two-factor authentication settings. You might have also seen it explained as 2FA. But if you want to look up two-factor authentication settings in more detail, I recommend giving it a go, but then also reviewing our help guide. So on the top right of screen, the light blue question mark, and then from here, you can actually look up two-factor authentication. So in terms of today's webinar, we've covered quite a lot. And we did say that we're going to walk through how access levels interact across practitioners and administrators, and that's what we've done. How to assign and change access levels. We walk through how we can assign and change access levels within our practitioners' accounts by under the settings user section and clicking the edit icons here, the pencil icons under the actions column. We also work through customizing access levels for different practitioners, different locations / clinics under clinic restrictions, and different information category types. And finally, we've talked about hiding patient names and enabling two-factor authentication. So as a big thank you from all of us here at Halaxy, thank you for attending. And we hope that this is somewhat of a taster in terms of understanding how you can customize your access levels across not just clinical information and basic patient contact information, but also across your entire practice. So you're including your calendar, your finances, your reports, and personal information under locations, and also settings in general as well. So whenever you'd like to customize access to your Halaxy, we provide options, and if you're having any questions about those restrictions or enabling access for different users within your Halaxy accounts, please, by all means, check the help guide up top right, search for user access levels, and that's a really great place to start at first. This webinar will also be available from next week to watch on replay, and you can always email us in at community@halaxy.com. or give us a call over our opening hours as well. We're available 18 hours a day. So thank you very much for attending today's webinar. It's been brilliant to have so much participation. On behalf of the whole team, we've really enjoyed having you involved, and hopefully it's been a help and been insightful for you going forwards within your Halaxy accounts. So we wish you all the best, and please be in touch if we can be of assistance. Thank you very much, and have a great day. Bye.